Hey y'all, Micah here. How are you doing? Yeah, I just want to do a quick update video because a couple of cool things happened in the world of Go and AWS Lambda recently. So one of those things is that Go released version 1.22. So if you haven't done so, head over to the go.dev website, click on download, and you can upgrade your version of Go on your system just by downloading the latest 1.22 version. It's super easy to do on a Mac. You just download the installer and it will update whatever version you currently have. You can take a look at the release notes. If we click release history and then go to the 1.22 release notes right here, there's quite a few changes and updates, some pretty cool stuff for Go nerds. There's some changes to how for loops work, a couple of updates to the Go command. But what I thought was really interesting is down here in the core package library, they've made some new additions to the HTTP package. So previously, you could create a HTTP server with Go pretty easily using this core package. But if you wanted to do any kind of dynamic routing or handle different types of request methods, you'd have to write code to handle that on your own or use a third-party package or framework or something like that. So now this is built into the core HTTP package, which makes it super easy to spin up a really simple HTTP server and do some pretty interesting pattern matching and that sort of stuff. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the other thing that I learned about the last couple of weeks, which is the AWS Lambda Web Adapter project. This is a super cool project, just beyond the scope of Go. So if you're using any kind of programming language, this might be useful to you. So the AWS Lambda Web Adapter is an open source project that is being developed by a few AWS engineers. And it allows you to basically run any kind of web application that listens on a port on AWS Lambda. So if you have an existing web application written in Express for Node or some other framework for Node or Python Flask, for example, you can easily send it up to Lambda just by adding a layer to your Lambda definition. So I thought this is kind of cool because it kind of goes hand in hand with the updates to the new version of Go 1.22. So let's take a look at how it works. If I jump over to my code editor, I have a super simple HTTP server defined here in Go. Okay, so I'm just importing the net/HTTP core package. Um, Along with foomt and string convert. And I have just a main function. And inside that main function, I'm handling two kinds of routes. So I have the home page route, and that's defined as a get request on the root route, which will spit back home page. And then I have another handler for a dynamic route, which looks for a get request for any ID passed in. And so I'm checking to make sure that ID is an integer, and if it's not, it's going to send back a 404 page. And then if it is an integer, it's going to just say handling page with that ID. And then at the bottom, I'm just listening on port 3000. So if you notice something, this is not a Lambda function. There's no Lambda handler. There's no Lambda for Go package being imported. There's no start lambda.start thing defined down here like we normally would do. This is just a regular old HTTP server. And I can run it right in the console. I can just say go run cmd slash main, and I could actually just start trying things out in the terminal. That looks really funny. But I can do localhost 3000, for example, and get home page back. So I can test this out completely locally. I can run this anywhere. I can run this on an ECS cluster or on an EC2 instance or really anywhere that servers work, it will run. But I can also run it on AWS Lambda. And to do that, all I have to do is define a Lambda function. You can do this in the console, of course, but I'm doing this in AWS SAM. And so all there is really a definition for the function. Just as usual, you point to where your function code is. You put bootstrap for the handler. You pick the runtime of your choosing, which is either AL2 or AL 2023 at the moment. I'm going to use ARM64 for my architecture. And then at the bottom, you add two key components here. You add an environment variable that maps the port you want to listen to. So if you recall on my code, I'm listening on localhost 3000 for my port. And then in below there, you add a layer. And this layer is specific to the region that you're in and also the architecture that you're on. And there's a list of these layers available on the web page for the AWS Web Adapter. And I'll link to that in the video below. And that's all you do. Then you add an HTTP API and deploy it. So I've already deployed it. And so let's go take a look at it working. So if we go over to back to our browser, we can go to our API endpoint, and you can see if you run this Lambda function, you'll get the home page for your home page, and then you can put in your route. So let's say 1234, and we're going to be serving page 1234. Of course, if I put in a string instead of a number, like the word string, it's going to give me that 404 page I defined, and so on and so forth. And so now I've got dynamic routes working on a Lambda function with Go. Pretty cool. All right.